On behalf of Checkpoint, I'd like to welcome you to this inaugural edition of the Security in Action podcast series, where we talk to thought leaders from all over the world. These are people making a difference in the cybersecurity landscape every day. I'm Shashi Kiran, Chief Marketing Officer at Checkpoint, and today it's my pleasure to bring in a person who's been leading the charge on email security for the company. Entrepreneur, technologist, and business person. Joining me from the Big Apple is Friedrich. Gil, pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Shashi. It's my pleasure.
So I know you're really passionate about email security and will want to go there. But before we get into that, why don't we start a bit by discussing your background and your journey so far and how you ended up being in cybersecurity.
Sounds good. So like every good thing in life, I got into cybersecurity by complete randomness. I served in the Israeli military for 6 years, and during the last part of it, I was doing my master's. And then after I finished my service, I took 6 months to just complete the thesis. And I wasn't paid too well during the service. So after 6 months of not working, I went to my professor and I said, I ran out of money. Do you mind if I take a job? Because I finished the research. I only need to write everything down. And he said, that's funny you say, you mentioned this because I'm starting a cybersecurity company. Do you want to join? He actually told me the story. I knew nothing about cybersecurity. I couldn't judge if it was a good idea or not, but I figured I'm going to see the professor every day, and that will make sure I write the thesis. So that's why I joined cybersecurity. And that was over 20 years ago. So I've been in that field since.
And you made the journey from Tel Aviv to New York City.
Yes. So it wasn't even my choice. So I followed my wife. She finished her PhD in Israel, got a postdoc here at the NYU Medical Center, and at that point we moved to the States, and that was 14 years ago. So we've been here for a while now.
Look, I think you made email security one of the fastest growing businesses in the company. I remember maybe mid of 2024 is when we talked about crossing the $100 million ARR, and it's just been growing leaps and bounds. So what's actually contributing to this kind of amazing growth today?
So first, I think the market is somewhat in a transition. For the longest time, email security was pretty boring market. It was a duopoly with, two major vendors in the secure email gateways, etc. And then when companies started to move their email to cloud-based email, Office 365, Gmail, etc., I would say there was an opportunity to secure these platforms in a better way. The secure email gateways were no longer the optimal way. And we were fortunate to really pioneer this notion of securing email via API. To this date, we're also the only ones that leveraging API are able to also have pre-delivery enforcement as well as post-delivery, but the pre-delivery via API is really unique to us. So that combination of a market shift that opened the opportunity for us with a well-differentiated technology really increased the adoption, and we're not 10x since the acquisition, but we'll get there probably by the end of this year, 10x versus where we were when Checkpoint acquired us. So I think the combination of having great technology, a market that is in a transition, and the power of Checkpoint, the global sales organization that we have, and the huge investment into R&D that Checkpoint's able to to deliver, is really what's creating this adoption. We finished the year with 42,000 customers, so a lot of small ones, but also some Fortune 50 companies that that rely on us to secure their email.
That's an amazing number. You look at the millennials and the Gen Zs, a lot of them are into social media for communication, and email's been around like forever. So, what's it about email that we're still trying to solve and secure when you have all of these different forms of communication, if you will?
Sure. So I would start from the end. So our product is called Harmony Email and Collaboration because we're really inspired to secure not just your email but all your lines of communications. And we are part of the Harmony suite at Checkpoint, right? So we also have browse and mobile, so that we can secure you when someone sends you something via LinkedIn and via other platforms. We want to make sure you stay protected. Specifically for email, I think email still is I would say, the main platform of communication when it comes to people outside of your organization, right? So if you go to a conference and you meet someone and you exchange business card, if that still exists, or you just, share your details with one another, it's normally your email address. And email address by design is such that if we take the world of firewall, it's open to everyone. Everyone can communicate with everyone, in our organization. So that's how we designed it. But that's also why, from a security perspective, it's where we see most of the attacks and most of the sophisticated attacks, because everyone in the world can send a message to an employee in our organization. And really, that's the power of email, but that's also the value of email. So I think high level, that's why even though 20 years we've been trying to solve this security problem, it evolves all the time, and it still is an open and a big problem for every enterprise out there.
So, why is it so difficult to secure? And what kind of attacks are you seeing today versus what you were seeing, maybe a few years ago when you went down this path of email security?
So they absolutely evolve, right? And because the security technology, especially the default that whether it's Microsoft or Google provide, because it sits in the hacker's hand, they're able to keep trying until they figure out how to bypass the default security. I think originally it didn't take much. You could impersonate to anyone, and it would just go in and get to the end user. And later, you had to be a little more sophisticated. So you couldn't send an email from FedEx.com, but you could still register a domain that was FedEx-deliveries or whatever else, and impersonate FedEx, etc. And that still is the case today. Or we've seen them use Unicode where instead of an O, there's that O with the little dot or two little dots above it that, unfortunately at our age, we can no longer see on the screen, but that's how they impersonate. They write Microsoft and the O is not a real O. So they're able to bypass and impersonate Microsoft. At a later stage, the attacks, hackers already had some, bridgeheads or strongholds with your partners, and you would get attacks from your partners. So there's nothing wrong with the sender. There's prior communication between the two organizations, etc. And really, we only have the language and the style and what they're asking, you to do, etc., in order to detect the attack. And fortunately, on our side, the technology around LLM, specifically large language models, and NLP, natural language processing, was reinvented and recreated in the last couple of years. So, to identify the subject and the style and psychological indicators like urgency and call to action, all of this became available to us, and we use that as part of the security. And what we call BC3, the last sort of generation of these attacks, is when they're leveraging just an existing platform. Everything is legitimate. There's no language there, right? You sent me a Zoom today to get on this call, and if you said, "Hey, please read this document before we get on a call," because you could put a note in your invite, I would probably do that. But it's an invite from Zoom very often. if you generate the meeting this way. So the sender is right, the language is right, and still people are able to send malware or malicious content. We've seen the recent one with PayPal. We've seen impersonation to things like QuickBooks and platforms for generating invoices. So um, it's a never-ending game, and that we see the evolution. I think we always need to invent new ways in order to detect these attacks and be one step ahead of the hackers. Um, we have one quick example. We've seen QR codes a while back, and we protected from QR codes. So we added to our OCR the ability to see that there's a QR code and look at the URL and see if the URL is malicious or not. And then Microsoft added detection for QR codes. So the hackers immediately start leveraging late weaponization. So when the email was delivered, it was clean, but then 5 minutes later, they would point it to something malicious. Um, so then we needed to do some sort of a click time protection on QR codes. So what we did, we developed a technology that replaces the original QR code with our QR code. 5 days later, when you scan it with your phone and go to the URL again, then we will test it again to see that it's clean. So it's almost like putting a stamp with our QR code on top of the original QR code so that we can verify it at click time. So that's another example. Or they've put the QR code inside of files and inside of encrypted files. So be able to detect that and put our stamp in those environments. So it's really a cat and mouse, and we constantly see the ingenuity of the hackers, and we're constantly, developing ways to catch them wherever they're trying to go and to infiltrate the organization.
Yeah, it's like a dance. You always need to kind of stay one step ahead sometimes. And personally, for me, I don't know how my email address gets out to all of these different tools that are sending us offers all over the time. And it's just a hard thing to find out what's real, what's not, because not everything's caught by the spam filter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the ingenuity that you talked about starts to come into play. And I'm thinking, you sort of mentioned LLMs, but with this whole notion of AI generated content, bots, do you see this surface area of attack through email increasing? How is that impacting the enterprise today?
So, I would dare predicting that it's probably the next frontier, specifically for targeted attacks. What we refer to as deep fake. Because we learned to be suspicious about the email itself, right? We get an email, they tell us to buy 500 gift cards at the Apple Store and to send them the numbers. We're not going to run and do that. We already learned. Text messages, the same thing, right? I get these text messages, hey, your FedEx package is waiting for you or whatever. We already learned not to trust. But when we're sitting and talking to someone, whether it's video or all video and audio or just audio, we still put a lot of trust into this, right? You assume you speak to me right now, and I assume I speak to you, etc. And with the deepfake technologies, that's no longer necessarily the case. So I think this, and also we still don't have the technology to detect it during the call to say, hey, this is actually not your CFO, it's a bot. And we also, it's not clear who should do that. Is that the endpoint solution, the email solution, the platform, the telecommunication platform itself? So I think step one is really employee education to say, even when it's a video, it doesn't mean that it's the right person because the technology exists to fake everything. So that's putting some zero trust thinking into their brain, and also trying to direct them to, I would call it two-factor authentication like method. So if you ask me to send you something or to transfer money somewhere, I would also look at the employee directory, and I'll find the phone number and I'll dial and make sure that you actually ask, because I want that second factor authentication. Especially with financial fraud, I think we need to implement those methods. it's already things we're seeing. So we have seen these attacks. They have been reported, normally at the very high end. So I think it was a bank or a financial institution that transferred $25 million based on a deep fake, teleconference call. Um, so it's there. It's now it's the top of the market, and it probably start going down as we speak. And while we develop the technologies, we also need to get our employees aware. Um, some of these will catch in email. So if you get an invite and it goes through email and the invite is fake, then we'll be able to block it before the end user would ever see that, right? So that's how it relates to email. At the moment, we won't be able to block the Zoom or to put something inside the Zoom that says, hey, this is fake, this is a bot. But at least we'll be able to prevent some of the emails that have led to that conference call.
Yeah, there's almost something very human about emails. You get an email from your boss asking you to do something very quickly, and you just see the name, you don't verify the email address, and there's a tendency to act quickly. And I've seen a lot of employees in security companies that fall prey to emails coming from their bosses. And it's very interesting. We did a survey once, and the email that got opened up the most was where the subject line was, do not open this email. And this was coming in from somebody who's cold calling. So there is this curiosity within the human mind where you want to explore, and I think that's when people fall prey. But looking at what you've been accomplishing so far with your team, you got into the leadership position with the Gartner's Magic Quadrant with their inaugural edition of the Email Security MQ in the December of 2024. So that must have been a very strong tailwind as you now look at 2025. Tell me about that particular report and what's gotten you there.
Sure, but I have to tell you a story on what you said about opening an email that you shouldn't. We had a CISO that come to us and buy our solution, and he told us that their organization fell victim to a phishing attack. That was the trigger to come and speak to us. And he said he went to the end user. He looked at the email. It looked obvious that it was phishing. And he went to the employee, said, didn't you see that, this email was a phishing attack? And the employee said, oh, yeah, of course I knew it's malicious, but I was just curious what would happen if I click that link. So, sometimes you just cannot control your end users. Obviously we're very proud with being a leader at Gartner. I think if we look 3 years back, I believe we're the only vendor that in every analyst report, have been named the leader in the past 3 years. And also, if you look at Forrester and Gartner, let's say, we're only one of two vendors that have been a leader at both. So, analysts like our solution. I think part of it is just the feedback from the market, right? They don't just rely on what we tell them. They speak to customers, they speak to partners, etc. And what they both or what they all emphasize for us, I think, is the technology, the catch rates, which at the end of the day, that's the first thing the customer care about. Make sure no malware, no phishing, etc., reaches my inbox. Of course, there's never 100%, but having the best security is something we never stop, pursuing. The other part is, aspiring to have a complete solution. So there's so many moving parts, so many aspects to email security, whether it's, DLP, data leakage prevention, to archiving, to detecting DMARC, and so on and so forth. We're relatively new in the market. We're latecomers. Some of our bigger competitors have been in the market for 20 years. So we've put a lot of resources and effort to make sure that we're not a niche solution. We're not just solving your phishing problem, but we're providing the full suite of what you need and what you expect from a niche security from an email security platform.
So when I looked at the MQ and the strengths that Gartner highlighted for Checkpoint's email security solution, they talked about price competitiveness, which is a really good thing. And they talked about our ability to prevent threats as a differentiation. And I guess the third one was really more about how you went about in terms of the overall collaboration pieces of it. And you've gone against some very big names that have been around for quite a while. It's a relatively mature segment. So what's the secret sauce? What's allowing us to get these kind of 42,000 plus customers? And I also heard that if you go and do a demo, 8 out of 10 end up being a customer from a prospect. So the conversion rate you have is quite high. So what's the secret sauce going on here?
It's quite basic. It's almost not secret. I would say it's a combination of a very, very easy deployment experience. It's so fast to install us, even with the largest accounts. We joke that it takes longer to get on the Zoom call than to actually install the product for the entire organization. And that goes back to the original vision of deploying through API, right? We call it the iPhone app experience, because to install us for even a Fortune 500 is as easy as installing an app on your iPhone. And that's the first part. And then I think the second part is just, a very solid solution that works really well out of the box, with, on the one hand, the right defaults for the configuration, on the other hand, the right options to tweak and tune it, where you need it, presenting the results. So I would sum all of that after days of deployment, just a solid product that delivers on the promise. I think that's the key thing.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned that, because somebody told me complexity is one of the biggest threat vectors in the industry. And so you becoming the easy button for email security in a way and providing the stability, that by itself is a huge differentiation. And I know Gartner also lauded you for your market understanding as well, which means you kind of look at the market here and now and tailor a solution that meets the requirements. So what's going on from here onwards, and what's exciting you as you move forward into 2025 and beyond?
So, we were able to speak for, I guess, 20 minutes now, and we have not said the word AI, or not too much of the
I mentioned
word
it
AI.
once.
Yeah, LLM, etc. We did a little bit, but so first, I think to say today that you use AI is almost like to say you use software. It's obvious. Everyone is using AI. And the
Table
question is not
stakes,
about using AI, but how you use AI. It's exciting because it's still, the options are huge, and we're still exploring new options and finding out where we're able to leverage that. So, for example, we learned that end users don't like to talk to bots, right? It would be obvious, but they want to see the results of an AI analysis, but they don't want to have a chat with the bot. That's something we, interviewed our customers and we learned. So one of the things we're doing, you mentioned this earlier, we have this challenge. You look at the email and you're not sure if it's phishing or not, to provide that information to the end user via AI, to basically give them the indicators that, yes, you think this is an email from your Bank of America account, but it's not, because 1, 2, 3, because this link is actually malicious, etc. So that level of communication without being a chat, leveraging AI to do that is something we do. And there are many other examples, both on the detection side and on the admin interface side, where AI allows us to do something we could never do before. One example, we have a search option where we call it search and destroy. You search throughout all the emails, and then you're able to block the things that maybe made it to the inbox and you didn't want them to. And we had old style search, we said, if the attachment has an MD5, etc. But we never thought about searching by the number of attachments. Now we created a a co-pilot search option where you say, give me all the attachment, all the emails with more than one attachment. Bang, you get the result. So we just open a lot of options to our end users and their interaction with the product. That excites me because I feel like, we've been innovating in this market for a while. We've been fortunate to come with the market when the early technologies of cloud and of AI were being introduced. And now we're at a point of time where computers can do things that would sound science fiction 2 years ago. Being able to glue the two together and to create products that were not possible a short time ago, I think that's where the innovation goes, and that's really what excites me about what we're going to do next.
Do you think the industry needs to do more in terms of educating employees or consumers, given the diversity of the population that gets engaged through email? And what role do our partners and providers kind of play in this whole ecosystem?
So, I mean, when it comes to educating the end users, security awareness training tools have been around for a while. Both, phishing simulation as well as all the videos that, not just focus on email, but tells you about endpoint security and mobile, etc. There's one thing we did that, I think was innovating and is going to be differentiating in that market. We've created a phishing training tool that basically leverage Gen AI, takes all the attacks that we've seen in a week, and then is able to deliver, the best attack for CFO in manufacturing in the US based on all the attacks that we've seen in the past week. So as likely as possible, a scam that person will see in real life. So we're just releasing that, and we're getting very, very strong feedback from customers. Also because there's no configuration, right? You don't need to create campaigns and
Right.
all the hassle that every other training tool required. It's just tell us the frequency and you're done. But I don't think so. I think that's just the next step of training that we've done before. I think the partner ecosystem is responsible in a sense because whatever we do, a lot of these attacks are scams that are designed to trick the human, the end user. And those two notions that I mentioned at the beginning, having zero trust, kind of zero trust mentality in their brains, together with that two-factor authentication in their brain, again, not in the traditional way of logging in, but in verifying in a independent way that what they're asked to do is actually legit. Those two things are super, super important as we live our life in this digital era. And our partners are able to echo this to their customers, make sure, they help their customers understand this so that everyone is more secure.
It's a paradox in some sense, because as humans, we want to trust each other to collaborate, but then you're asked to view everything through the lens of zero trust. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where the dichotomy hits a lot of people. But it's fascinating to sort of hear your journey so far and talk about the technology. I want to come back to Gil Friedrich, the human again. Obviously, you've had a successful growth of the business in the last few years, and I'm sure your targets and growth objectives are going to be significantly high as you get into 2025 and beyond. So what do you do to relax and unwind?
Interesting. I enjoy running. I run a lot. And normally when I run the long runs, I listen to books. So I use my time there this way. And otherwise just family, we are in front of a long weekend. I promised my kids that I'll take them skiing. So just trying to spend time with the family and be active. I guess that's what I'm doing.
That's wonderful. I think the deep thought time that you get through running, decouples you from the day to day. It's very rejuvenating. And maybe I ask you this other question. What do hackers do to relax?
Wow, I have no idea. I um I think
They go fishing.
oh, very cool. Very
And so when
nice.
they go fishing, it's good for your business because you
Yeah,
block them. So that was a dad joke. I apologize for that, but
I
I
love
couldn't
that joke.
resist
So I'm
putting
going to
that
use
in.
that with my kids today.
So I know there's a lot of information about Checkpoint Harmony SASE email solution on our website. Is there any particular place that you'd like for people to go to learn more?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, the email security market has been through a transition driven by our move to the cloud, as I mentioned, and whether you are looking to buy something right now or not, I would recommend anyone, if it's relevant to your day-to-day job, just to schedule a demo with us. It's a promise. We won't waste your time. We'll, just tell you a little more about the attack landscape and how the new technologies are able to address that. So yeah, just go to checkpoint.com, click on the email button, and schedule a demo.
Well, thank you for that, Gil. You've adapted your lifestyle as an entrepreneur and now into a major technology company with a lot of ease, and you've had success across your journey, whether you were in the Navy previously and now in the corporate environment. And I wish you much success for growth, and let's keep the bad guys away. And with that, I want to thank you for being here and sharing some of your insights, and we will do some more of this a bit down the line.
Excellent. Thanks, Shashi. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for having me in your podcast.
Thank you again, Gil. So, bye now. So that was Gil Friedrich, the fearless leader for email security at Checkpoint. And he was kind enough to come here and share some of his thoughts and insights and educate us on this particular domain. We'll have more such thought leaders in this podcast series, so stay tuned. Until then, be safe and be secure.